Okay, so what I've got going on here is I have the Think Like an Accountant TLA Chapter 07 Excel file, which you will need to download from Google Classroom into Microsoft Excel. Step one. Okay. And it says read all the steps for working with this workbook. Am I going to do that? Not really. Okay. Click the analysis worksheet. That's the first one. Key in your name. Okay. All right. There's my name. All right. Examine the data downloaded from the computerized accounting system. Now, my instructions here are going to essentially walk you through how to get data for all the various questions in the Google Doc. The Google Doc will be in Google Classroom. That's going to be your write-up, your analysis, okay? This part is going to be the technical part, which walks you through, okay, what's this pivot chart stuff, what's Slicer, all that stuff. Okay, so I'm going to click on the Chart tab, and I'm now on number 5. Let me slide over here. Number 5, click on the Chart tab. On the Pivot Tools Analysis tab in the Filter group, select Insert Slicer. Let me just kind of put this off to the side here. Okay, so click in the chart there somewhere. All right. Come on. Got a bunch of stuff here. I try to put my instructions side by side here. Okay. Now you might have a PDF file for instructions that I created for you. Okay, so click in the chart, go up to the Analyze tab up here, and over here in Filter, you're going to say Insert Slicer. And we are going to say Select Responsible Manager. So we're slicing our chart data. This is called a pivot chart. We're going to insert a slicer by responsible manager. And what a slicer does, it gives you as it sounds, it gives you a slice of the data that you're analyzing. Okay? And so we selected responsible manager, and it comes down here, and our slicer, let me get myself out of the way here a little bit, and our slicer looks like this as it shows in the diagram. I clicked it out of the way, number 10. I'm just flying along here. Click off the slicer box to remove the object handles, like so, okay? The name of each manager appears in a blue button indicating that the chart currently displays information for that manager, okay? Well, right now it selects information for all the managers. We want to break it down by our 3 managers and go, okay, how good of a job have they done? So I want to click on Nash for starters, okay? So click on Nash, and it shows me all the information for Nash. And these are the various account areas that he's been responsible for. You see budget expenses in green and actual expenses in red, okay? Now, you have to kind of determine overall, how has Nash done in managing expenses? Okay? What are some examples overall of whether he's been good in managing his expenses, keeping them under budget, or not? That's the question that I gave to you in the Google Doc was, give me 2 examples of how that has happened for each manager. Okay, so here's Nash. Here's Smith. So overall, how has Smith done? Again, give me a couple examples. Has he done a good job, fair job overall, comparing budgeted to actual? Okay. How has he done managing expenses? And then the last person we have down here is Stevens. How has Stevens done? Good, bad, indifferent overall. 2 examples for Stevens. Okay. So you're going to do some analysis around the pivot chart using the slicer feature. Okay. And that question, la-di-da, I've got that buried somewhere. That question in your Google Doc looks like this. Has each manager been successful in keeping actual expenses under budget? Cite at least 2 examples. Okay. All right. So that's number 1 here. Then it says go back to your analysis tab. Analysis. All right. Number 15. It 16, enter the label over there in F4, over, under. And by the way, this is like real stuff you would actually do in industry. Over, under budget. Take the same format as the ones next to it. Number 17 in cell F5, enter a formula to determine the percentage that the actual amount exceeds the budgeted amount. The actual amount exceeds the budgeted amount. Well, first of all, I need to determine with Excel equal sign, am I over under budget for starters? I'm going to take my actual and subtract my budgeted. I'm going to check mark up here. Now that would be the dollar amount as to whether I'm over, I've spent more than what I had budgeted. But it's asking us for a percent of the amount over under budget as it relates to our budgeted amount. So what percent over are we? Well, we've calculated whether we're over under budget. Now I'm going to go up here into my formula bar. PEMDAS, algebra, E5 minus E5. But to create a percentage, I need to divide by my difference, actual versus budget, on how much that compares to as a ratio to create a percentage budget, E5. So I'm going to say parentheses D5 minus E5, my over under budget, and divide by the budgeted amount. Again, making sure D5 minus E5, PEMDAS, that gets calculated first. Now it gives me a nonsense number here, 0.10. It's using the default format. But down here it says format F5 to display the variance as a percentage with 1 decimal place. Okay, up here in number, I'm going to say percentage and 1 decimal place. And then it says copy the formula down. Now, if you're not familiar with this, it's a little Excel 101. Using your fill handle in F5 crosshair, you're going to copy that down to F33. Okay, so you're developing a percentage, plus or minus percentage, as to whether that item is over or under budget. Here you see the first one, office supplies, actual 66,000 plus change. Budget was 60,000 plus change. We're over 9.5%. Okay, and you see over here our responsible managers. Well, they're all kind of mixed up, aren't we? So we have to make some sense out of our data. All right, so here we go. We're in the Home tab. It says click on any manager name in column B. Stevens. Okay. All right. So on the Home tab, over in my sort and filter area in my editing group. Now yours might look a little bit different than mine. Again, we're working in Excel. Don't do this in Google Sheets, please. Okay. I'm going to say sort A to Z. In other words, I'm sorting column B by responsible manager in alphabetical order. I put them in alphabetical order. Okay. That's number 21. Okay. 22. On the data tab, in the outline group, select subtotal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate subtotals for my responsible managers. And down here it tells me in my subtotal box here what I need to put at each change in. Well, what did I sort by? Well, I sorted by responsible manager, didn't I? Sum. Okay. So every time my responsible manager changes, in this case, I'm going to go from Nash to Smith because I sorted by responsible manager. For each time I get a change in responsible manager, I want to do a subtotal. I want to add up all the stuff, in this case for Nash. And so like the diagram down here says, select actual and budget, but uncheck over, under, budgeted amount. Because that's on an individual basis. If you did a subtotal, that would be a nonsense variable. It wouldn't make sense. Click OK. All right. Now you have subtotals for each of your managers. Now I'm going to kind of skip here a little bit. I'm going to do number 29 actually right now, where it says la-di-da. Copy of any of the over under budget formulas to the lines containing the totals for each manager. Okay. So I'm just going to go down here to this calculation and I'm going to drop it into my subtotal. Same thing for Smith. Same thing for Stevens, and actually grand total as well. Okay. I kind of skipped ahead to 29 there because that's going to make a whole lot more sense. It says an outline area that's over here on the left if you have subtotals activated. Now, if you got something weird right now and you're like, oh, this doesn't make sense, it's because you either didn't do the change right up here at each change in responsible manager, or you didn't sort first by responsible manager. If you didn't sort, it's going to be all kinds of whacked out stuff. Okay? So you have to sort first and then set up your subtotals in Excel. So clicking one of the numbered outline buttons to the left of the column headings enables you to view the analysis at 3 different levels of detail. Now you're getting into some powerful stuff here with Excel. If you click on button 1 up here, okay, all that's going to give you is the grand total. And you can see that for our company, which is Glade Media, overall, we were 1.2% under budget for our expenses. With a $2.5 million budget, looks like we're like 29,000 under. So overall, you're like going, that's pretty good. Okay. Are you going to use this data again to answer the questions? The remaining questions are, what is the total under over budget percentage for each manager? Okay. You can glean that pretty easily. Which account controlled by Stevens is most significantly over budget? Now we're getting into drill down detail. And again, if you're like going, what are you talking about? I'm just looking down here at these questions I have. Which account controlled by Stevens is most significantly over budget? Can you think of a case where an actual account balance over budget might not indicate poor management performance? How does your answer affect the usefulness of this analysis? Well, think about, and as you maybe go through this data, think about maybe an expense area. Obviously, if you talk about budgeted revenue, and I'm over budget on my budgeted revenue, that's like, yay! I mean, it's like I made more money or I brought in more sales than I expected. That's an easy one. That's like a softball over the plate one. But what expense account, if it was over, wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing? So be thinking about it as we look through the data here. Okay. All right. So that was number 1. Level 1 is our grand totals. Level 2, click on button 2 up there. It gives you your subtotals for each manager, Nash, Smith, and Stevens. So it's the second level of detail. Level 3 gives you all of your detail with your subtotals. Okay? All right. And again, to answer that question on I guess it's number 4. I've got these things misnumbered here. La-di-da, 2, period. By the way, I'm still in the process of actually creating this assignment. So if you think you're like, we're not going to have this all figured out yet. Well, there you go. There, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what you're going to be looking at, something very similar to that. Okay. All right. So here is all of our data, clicking on the 3rd tab up there in our subtotals. Use the outline tools to answer questions 2 and 3. Now you don't need to print the worksheet, but I will want you to turn in the completed worksheet as you turn in the Google Doc, which goes with the assignment. Obviously, make sure you save the work, save the file, and then turn it in. Okay, so that is Think Like an Accountant. Again, I'm going to have more of an emphasis on these assignments second semester as part 10% of your grade, because I want you to get in the habit and the feel of doing some things like actual accountants would do in data analysis and using Excel tools, which Again, for a lot of you who are going to be totally new, that's okay. But kind of stretch you a little bit. All right. Take care. Let me know if you have any questions. All right. See ya.